بسم الله.
Distinguished members of the General Assembly of the United Nations, in the name of the African Union, I would like to welcome you and I do call that this gathering will be a historic one in the world and the history of the world. And in the name of the General Assembly that is presided by Libya now, in the name of the African Union, and in the name of 1,000 traditional African kingdoms, in your own name, I would like to seize this opportunity to present the congratulations to our son Obama, because this is the first time that he is attending when that's the General Assembly in his capacity as the President of the United States, and we greet him because it is the hosting country of this gathering. This meeting comes at a corner at the culmination of so many challenges that facing of us, and that the whole world should come together and unite and should put all efforts together. Serious efforts should be put together by the world so that the world will defeat these challenges which constitute the main common enemy to all of us. Challenges of climate, challenges of international crisis or the economic capitalist deterioration, and the food crisis. Perhaps this swine virus may be one of those viruses that was created in the laboratory and it got out of control because it was meant in the beginning to be used as a military weapon, as well as the nuclear proliferations, as well as the hypocrisy, the deteriorations and the control of the money-wise. Dear brothers, and as you know, that the United Nations was established and founded by 3 countries were against the Germany at the time. The United Nations that we have today is different, but the United Nations it is the countries or the nations that were come together against Germany during the Second World War. These countries constituted or made a council named after Security Councils and gave member states to its own members and granted the veto. We were not present at the time. And the United Nations was tailored according to these 3 countries and wanted from us to wear the clothes or the suit that was tailored against Germany. This is the real substance and contents of the United Nations as it was founded 40 years or 60 years ago. This was happened during the absence of over 165 countries. The ratio is 1 of 8, and one was present and 8 were absent. They created or they made the charter. And you know, I have the charter, a copy of it, and once you read the Charter of the United Nations, the preamble of the United Nations is different from the provisions and the articles. How this came to existence, those who attended in San Francisco in 1945, they all participated in the preamble, but they left the articles and the provisions and the procedures of the internal procedures of the Security Council, or the so-called Security Councils. They left it to the job of the experts and the countries who are interested, which are the countries who created the Security Councils, which countries came together united against Germany. The preamble is very tempting, and no one is objecting to the preamble. But everything that came after that is completely in contradictions with the preamble. This is what we have now. This is what we are rejecting, and we shall never continue with it. This came to an end during the Second World War. The preamble says that the nations are equal, whether they are small or big. Are we equal in the permanent seats? No, we are not equals. And the preamble says that all nations are equal, whether they are small nations or whether they are big nations, as far as rights. Do we have the rights of the veto? Are we equals? The preamble says that we are equals in our rights, whether we are big or small. This is what is stated in the Nations, and this is what we have agreed in the preamble. So the veto is against the Charter. The permanent states are against the Charter. We do not accept it, and we do not acknowledge it. Neither do we recognize it. The Charter states that in the preamble, that we shall not resort to the military force unless it is a common interest. This is the preamble which we were happy and we signed, and we joined the United Nations because we wanted the Charter to be like that. It says that the armed forces only use it when it is a common interest to all nations. But after that, what happened? 65 wars broke out after the establishment of the United Nations and after the establishment of the Security Councils, and after this establishment, 65, and the victims are millions more than the victims of the Second World War. Are these wars and the aggressions and the force that was used, the power in the 65, was in the interest of the common interest of all of us? No, it was in the interest of one country or 3 countries or 4 countries or 1 country. But it was not in the interest of all the nations. And we shall come and discuss about the wars, whether these wars broke out was in the interest of 1 country or were in the whole nations. This is in full contradictions and full intervention of the United Nations charters, and we signed that. And unless we do things in the Charter of the United Nations according which we agreed, otherwise we don't speak diplomatically, we are not afraid, we are not coveting, and we were not being nice to anybody. Now we are talking about the future of the... There is no hypocrisy, no diplomacy, because it is a decisive and important vital matter. Of understanding and hypocrisy created to 65 wars after the establishment of the United Nations. The preamble states also that if there is a use of force, then there must be then it must be the United Nations force, so the United Nations military interventions, according to the joint ventures of the United Nations. Not country or 1, 2 country or 3 country using the force or the military power. The United Nations, all of it, will decide to go to war to maintain peace and world security. And if there is any aggression by 1 country against another after the 45, after the establishment of this United Nations, if there is any aggression against any country, the United Nations altogether should deter and stop this aggression, and should check this aggression. I mean, if a country, any country, Libya, for instance, makes an attack against France or aggression against France, then the whole United Nations should check the Libyan aggression against France, because France is a member state, independent state in the United General Assembly, that is a sovereign country, a member state of the United Nations, and all of us that we have to protect the sovereignty of all nations collectively. But 65 wars, aggressive war, took place without any actions from the United Nations to stop and check these wars. And 8 fierce big wars, and victims of these wars amount to millions, made or initiated by the countries who have member states and veto those countries who believe that they would maintain this sovereignty and independence of the peoples. These countries actually use aggressive force against peoples. We believe that these countries will make peace and security in the world and protect the peoples. These countries actually resorted to aggressive wars and hostile wars, and as a matter of fact, they enjoyed the veto that was given to them by themselves and enjoyed the member states of the Security Councils, but in the meantime, they actually initiated the war, which amounted to millions of victims. So, in this charter, there is nothing that the United Nations will interfere in which will be the pure business of the internal affairs. I mean the government. It is the internal affairs of a certain government. No country has the right to interfere in this affair, in the sort of government, whether it is a dictatorial, socialist, capitalist system, or whether it is a reactionary, progressive. This is the responsibility of the society. It is an internal matter of the people concerned of a certain country. Rome, one day the senators of Rome, they gave him the mandate to be a dictator, because at the time it was good for Rome. No one can say to Rome at the time that you gave Caesar this veto. The veto is not mentioned in the charter. If we joined the United Nations because we thought we are equals, and then there is one country that can object to all the decisions that we make, and it has a member state. Who has given this country this member state? These 4 countries, they have given themselves member states. The only country that we have voted in this General Assembly is China. China, we have voted to give China a member state in the Security Councils. This was done democratically, but the other member seats was not democratic, was imposed upon us. We should not be accepted by us, and it was a dictatorial procedure that was done against our will. United reform is not the increasing of the member states. It is just to make things worse. I don't know how this will be translated, but if we add more water, it will be more muddy. This is a typical expression to insult to injury. I mean to make things worse, and to make things even worse by how? Because many big countries will be added further to the former big countries that we already have, and like this we'll have it will be outweighed, so we'll have more superpowers. Then from here we reject having any more seats done in this way. The solution is not in having more seats, and the most dangerous one, if we have more superpowers to the already superpowers that we already have. This will crush down the peoples of all small peoples, the third world countries, which now are coming together in what may be called the G100. There are 100 small countries coming together in a forum that is called, a member called FOS, forum of small states. These countries will be crushed by supercountries because further superpowers, further big countries will be added to already superpowers. This door should be closed, and we reject that strongly and categorically. Then they open the door to have more seats in the Security Council. This will add more poverty, more injustice, more intention at the world level, and more competition at the level of the Security Councils, and then there will be high competition between certain countries, between Italy, Germany, Indonesia, India, Pakistan, the Philippines, Japan, Brazil, Nigeria, Argentina, Brazil, Nigeria, Algeria, Libya, Egypt, Congo, South Africa, Tanzania, Turkey, Iran, Greece, Ukraine. All these countries will ask to have a seat in the Security Councils, and like this we shall have a race of competitions. Then it will be impractical. So what is the solution? The solution is that for the solution presided by for the General Assembly by Dr. Aitreki, which will be abiding resolutions taken by the General Assembly, which will not take in considerations any other quarter. The solution is that we shall close the admission of member states, and we don't have any more member states. This is an item that is provided for the General Assembly, presided by Dr. Aitreki right now. And in place of that will be the achievement of the democracy based on equality between member states. There should be equality between member states, and the transformation of the powers and the mandate of the Security Councils to the General Assembly, and the membership will be for the associations, not for the countries. Because if we open the door for more members and more membership for the countries, because this will give the right to any country to have a member seat in country, and the preamble allow that. No country can say to Italy, for instance, you don't have a seat in the Security Councils if a seat is given to Germany. Italy Germany, maybe for the argument of Italy, say that it was not Germany was an aggressive country, was a narcissist, and was defeated in the Second World War, and if we give India a seat and say this, then Pakistan both will say that we are a nuclear countries and we are at war, and then Pakistan, that will be a danger thing. And if we give Japan, then we should give Indonesia, being the biggest Muslim country in the world. And then Turkey and Iran, Ukraine will have the same right. What can we say to them? Argentina, Brazil, Libya that is discarded the WMD program because it will deserve a member state, because it has done service to world security by discarding this program, and South Africa will do the same, and Tanzania will do the same. All these countries are important, and Ukraine maybe have asked this door should be, this is falsehood, and this is an exposed trick, and if we want to reform United Nations, and then we bring more superpowers, more countries, and then we add more to the already big superpowers, which did quite a lot of suffering to us, and then like this, then the solution is to achieve democracy at the level of the General Congress of the world, which is the General Assembly, which is the transformations of the Security Council power to the General Assembly. and the Security Council will be just an instrument to implement the decisions taken by the General Assembly. It will be the Parliament of the world and the Legislative Assembly of the world, and this is democracy, and the Security Council should be responsible before the General Assembly, and we should not accept it. These are the legislators of, which is the members of the General Assembly, and the resolution should be binding. It is said that the General Assembly should do and this at the recommendation of the Security Council. The contrary, the Security Council should do this and that according to the rules and the orders of the United Nations. These are the United Nations who are all, including all the members of the world, and not the Security Council, which include only 10 member states. How can we be happy about the world peace and security if the 4 countries or 10 countries are controlled by the whole world? We are 190 nations and countries, and we are like the Hyde Park. I mean, we just speak and nobody is implementing our decisions. We are just like a decor. You are made like a decor. You are like a Hyde Park. You are without any real substance. It's just a corner speaker like the speakers of the Hyde Park corner. No more, no less. You just make a speech and then disappear. These who you are right now. The Security Council is an executive body for the resolution taken by the General Assembly only. And in this case, there will be no competition for the Security Council member states, because once the Security Council becomes a tool to implement the resolution taken by the General Assembly, there will be no need for any competitions. The Security Council should just be a representative for all nations, but not by a state. This is what is submitted now to the General Assembly. But a permanent seat for all space, for all union, I mean. The 27 countries for the European Union, they should have a permanent seat in the Security Council. The African Union should have a member seat in the Security Council, 53 countries. And Latin American should have a permanent seat, the Asian should have a permanent seat, and the ASEAN countries plus 2 or 3 countries should have a permanent seat. The Russian Federation should have a permanent seat. The United States of America, which is the 50 countries, it has already a permanent member state in the Security Councils. SADC, once it is SARC, once it is established or is about to be established, should have a member state. Arab League should have a member state, 22 countries, Arab League. The Islamic Conference, 45 countries should have also a member state. Non-aligned movement, 120 countries should have a permanent member seat in the Security Council. Then we have the G100. Then we think about it, perhaps all small countries, the Forum of Small Countries, perhaps they would have a permanent member seat also. If there are countries outside the associations, unions that I mentioned, maybe we can assign a permanent seat will be given to them by rotation every 6 months or every year. Perhaps Japan, Australia, maybe outside any union, or Australia or any other country. Perhaps they would not join the ASEAN or the Russian Federation, or maybe not a member in the European Union or Latin American Union or in the African Union. Perhaps any country will be given. This is the solution. Now this is meant for a vote for the Security Council, for the General Assembly to take a vote. This is a vital, important issue. an item mentioned. The General Assembly is the Congress of the world, the Parliament of the world, the Master of the world, and no one should object. No one should. We are the nations. Anyone outside this General Assembly, we did not recognize him. Dr. Ali Treki and Ban Ki-moon, His Excellency the Secretary General of the United Nations, will make the draft, the legal draft, and set up the necessary committees to submit this for voting. That Security Council will, from now, will be made of unions. This is justice, this is democracy, and then we put an end to these Security Councils will be occupied by the countries, which one has a nuclear weapons, which one is has technology, one has the technology. This is terrorism. We cannot live in Security Councils under countries which have the superpowers. This is terrorism in itself. If you want a world that live in peace, united, we should do that. If you want a world in a world, then it's up to you. And then we have conflict, then we shall continue fighting each other or conflict till the doomsday or till the end of the world. These members which have a veto or they don't have a veto, all the Security Councils, they should have the right of the veto. All these unions belonging to the seats. Or we shall cancel the whole veto with the new formation. This is the real Security Councils. And anyhow, the new Security Council that is submitted to the new proposals submitted to the General Assembly for voting will be an executive council which will be under the control of the General Assembly, which will have the real power and the real making laws. Like this, all countries will be equal in the Security Councils in the same way that they are equal in the General Assembly. We are in the General Assemblies, we have equal votes. We should also be equals in the next door, which is the Security Council. A country has a veto, a country doesn't have a veto, a country has a member seat, and then a country should not have a member seat. We should not accept it, and it should be annulled right from now, and we should not be subject to that, and we should not accept any resolution taken by the Security Council according to its composition right now. We were under trusteeship, we were colonized, we are independent, and now we are here to decide the future of the world in a democratic way that will maintain world and peace security. All people, small and big, are equals. This is terrorism unless like the terrorism of the Al-Qaeda. This is terrorism. Terrorism is not just Al-Qaeda, but it can be also in other forms. We should resort to the majority of the votes of the General Assembly alone, and we should not go. If the General Assembly takes a vote, then it should be implemented and should be taken. And if they take any decisions, it should be into force. And no one should say, I am above and higher than the General Assembly. Anyone who says that I'm higher than or above the General Assembly should leave the United Nations and be alone. Democracy is not for the rich or for the richer or for the one who terrorizes us or for the one who is more powerful than us. We should have democracy. No. The higher world or the upper world should be the all nations at equal footing. Now the Security Council is a security feudalism, political feudalism for those who have a permanent seats, protected by them, and they are used against them, against us. It's not should not be called the Security Council. It should be called the Terror Council. Oh, that's right. You see, my brothers, that in our life, in a political life, that if the Security Council is used against us, then they go to the Security Council. They resort to the Security Councils. If they have no need to use it against us, then they ignore the Security Councils. If the Charter, they have interest and axe to grind to use against us, they respect the Charter. They look for the 7th chapter of the Security Charter to be used against this poor nation. But if they want to violate the Charter, they would ignore the Charter as if it doesn't exist at all. If the veto and the permanent seat is given to the one who has the power is injustice and terrorism that will not be accepted by us, and we should not live under the shadow of these injustice and this terror. Superpowers have interests, complicated interests, and they use the interests, they use the Security Council, they use the power of the United Nations to protect their interests. And these terrorize and intimidated the third world. The third world is terrified and being terrorized and living under the fear of terror. The Security Council, ever since it was established in 1949, did not provide us with security, but provided us, on the contrary, terror and sanctions. It is used against us only. For this reason, we are not committed to adhere to the Security Council resolutions after this speech of the 40th anniversary. 64 wars took place, broke out against the war, against the world, against small wars. Either it is fighting between small countries or aggression wars by superpowers against countries, big countries against us. And United Nations or the Security Council did not take any actions to stop these wars and aggressions in violation of the Charter of the United Nations against small nations and small peoples. And the General Assembly will vote for these historic resolutions. Either we continue together in one nation or we break into two. Equal nations have its own General Assembly, its own Security Council belonging to it, where they have equal footing, standing on equal footing, and the big countries who have the permanent seats, who have the rights, will stay in their own councils, whether they are 4 or 3, as they wish. We are not with them, and they should exercise veto against themselves, and this is not of our interest. And if they want to stay in permanent seats, okay, that's okay, but the permanent is a trait for Allah only. But we shall never stay under the supervision or the control of the veto and the right of veto to given countries. We are not fooled to give. We are not fooled to give the right to the veto to big powers to use us, and we are treated like second class and like despised nations. We have not decided that. These are big nations, sacred nations, respected nations. These are the nations of the world which represent 190 countries. You know that now ignoring the resolutions of the Security Council, now though it is unjust and it is only used against us, it is not used against the big countries who have the permanent seats or those countries who have the right of veto. They never use any resolution against them. In the contrary, it is used against us. So any resolutions taken against us, it has become a travesty of the United Nations, and it has become wars and violations of independent states and sovereignties, and committing war crimes and genocides. And these are all in violation of the Security Councils, even though there is a Security Councils and nobody cares about Security Councils. And even though now each country has, each international community have become Security Councils, establishing its own Security Councils, and with the Security Councils in its own formation now, it has the Security Council, which is next to us, has become isolated. The African Union has already established MAS, which is the Peace and Security for Africa, and the European Union has already established the Security Councils. The ASEAN already establishing its own Security Councils. America will have its own councils. Non-alignment, 120 countries will have will have its own peace and security council. This means that we have already lost the trust in the security councils, which we have not provided us with security, and now that's why we are creating regional peace securities or regional security councils. We are not committed to obey the rules or the resolutions of the Security Councils which in this formation, because it is undemocratic, unjust, and no one can force us to be a member of the Security Councils and to obey or adhere to resolutions or the orders given by the Security Councils in its composition as it is right now. Now, brothers, there is no respect to the United Nations, no regard to the General Assembly, which constitutes the actually the real substance of the United Nations, and which it has no decisions that is binding. The International Court of Justice, it is a judicial international body, and the resolutions only implemented against the small countries, small nations, and big countries are rejected to be implemented against the big countries. There are resolutions or court orders taken against these big countries, but they have been refused to be implemented against them. The IAEA, an important one in the United Nations, are not big countries are not responsible for it or are not under control. And we have discovered that this is only used against us. It is a sword Achilles against us. You told us this is an international one. So if it is an international one, then all the countries of the world should be under the jurisdictions of this one. If it is not international, then we close the door, and right from this now, from this speech, we shall close the door and we shall not accept it. And Dr. Nitrek, in his capacity as President of the General Assembly, he will talk to the director of the Brady or the one predecessors. They will ask him, do you inspect the nuclear supplies of all? Do you supervise the increase of this nuclear storage? Then if they say yes, then okay, then we accept that we will be under control. But if he says that we cannot go to these countries who have the nuclear powers and I cannot have any jurisdictions, then we should close the door and we should not accept it to be under its control. For your information, I called Bradley when we had the problem of the Libyan nuclear bomb, and the predecessor. I called him and I told him, Mr. Bradley, the agreements to decrease the nuclear supplies between the superpowers, is it under control? Is it under provisions? And if it's in a country increase its nuclear heads, are you aware of that? He said to me, no, these big powers, I cannot go so close to it. I cannot ask them. I cannot. So you're only coming to us. I said, this is not an international organization, so it is meant only for us. Security councils against us. International IAEA against us. International Court of Justice against us. And they are free. This is not injustice. This is not justice. This is not United Nations. This is rejected totally. As regards Africa, Dr. Ali Tereke, if you want to reform, whether they reform the United Nations or not, and even before you take any historic decisions against, vote against the decision, Africa needs from now permanent member seats in the Security Council, because this is an outstanding. Even if we are not talking about the United Nations reform, Africa was colonized, was isolated, was persecuted, was usurped, was treated like animals, was treated like slaves, was treated colonies, was colonized, was put under the trusteeship. These countries, the African Union, deserves a permanent seat for the past. It's an outstanding bill to be paid, like China. And it has nothing to do with the United Nations reforms. This is a priority and high on the agenda for the General Assembly, and no one can say that the African Union does not deserve a permanent seat. Who has the argument? Anyone can talk to me even right now or argue with me. Any proof that the African Union does not deserve a permanent seat or that the African continent does not deserve a permanent seat? No one can argue or no one can refute what I am saying. It is also for voting for the General Assemblies for compensation to countries who were colonized, and why? So that no more repetition of colonizations and no more usurpation and stealing of the wealth of the peoples. And why the Africans should go to Europe? Why do Africans go to Europe? Why the Asians go to Europe? Why do Latin American people go to Europe? Because Europe was colonized by, they took the mines, the wealth, all the resources of Africa, of Asia, of Latin America, and they took all the oil, the fruit, the vegetables, and the stock and the people, and they used them. Now the new generation, the African generations, whether it is Asian, whether it is Latin America, whether it is Africa, now they are looking for these wealth which have been usurped and stolen. Now, when I stopped one African going to Europe, I'm going to the Libyan border, I told them, where are you going? They told me, I'm going to take my usurped wealth. If you bring my usurped wealth, then I don't go, I stop. Who can bring back the wealth that was taken to me? Make a decision to bring all these resources and wealth so that no more immigration from the Philippines to Latin America to Mauritius, to India. Let us have the wealth that was taken from us and looted from us. Africa deserves the compensation, trillion, 7.7. 7.77 trillion. That's the compensation that Africa deserves from the countries who colonized Africa. Africa will call for that. And if you don't give us this amount, 7.77, the Africans will go to where you have taken these trillions. They have the right. They have to follow, bring the money back, and then they can be stopped. No Libyan immigration to Italy, even though Libya is so close. Why there is no Libyan immigration to Italy? Because Italy compensation for the Libyan people and accepted the compensations and signed a treaty, an agreement with the Italian, with Libyan, and it was endorsed by the Italian parliament, and Italy accepted that the colonization was wrong and we should not be repeated again, and Italy would not accept to be attacked, whether by air, sea, against the Libyan people, and that Libya will compensate for the next 20 years, will pay a quarter of billions, and when build hospitals for the Libyans who are lost their members, their hands or their things because of the mines during the Second World War, when the mines were laid upon the Libyan land. Italy made an apology and was sorry and said that it will never be a country occupy another country, the territories of other countries, and states. It was Italy when it was a kingdom, and it was the Italy during the fascist regime. And Italy has done a glorified thing and a civilized thing, and should be commended during the Berlusconi, and even the predecessor of Berlusconi did their own contribution until we achieved this result. The third world calls for the compensation. Why? So that we don't have any more colonization, so we don't have a repeat of colonization. And so that no country will be big and will cover to colonize another country, so that this country will know that there will be compensation and will not go on for colonization. Colonization should be incriminated, and countries who should pay compensations, who have done damage to the peoples during the colonization area, and they should be compensated for the damage and the suffering that they have inflicted during their colonial power. The other point I would hope that we have to face patiently. But before I say this point, it is rather sensitive to a certain extent. There are sentences between two brackets I would like to shed some light upon and mention. We, as a matter of fact, that we Africans are happy, proud that one son of Africans governs the United States of Africa. This is a historic event. One day that the black doesn't go where the white go, and cannot be in a bus where the white use. Now the American people, the black African Kenyan young voted for him and made him a president. This is a great thing, and we are proud of that. You are the beginning of a change. He did go for a change, but as far as I'm concerned, Obama is a glimpse in the dark for the 4 years or the next 8 years, and I'm afraid that we may go back to square one. Who will... can you guarantee America after Obama? Can you guarantee after Obama how America will be governed? No one can guarantee America. We are content and happy if Obama can stay forever as a president of the United States of America. The speech made by Obama just before me well, it is completely different from any American president that we have witnessed or we have lived with, or the former Americans. They used to say, and I quote, they say, "We shall send you all the weapons. We shall send you the road clusters and the sandstorms and the rolling thunder, and we shall send you the poisonous roses to the Libyan children." This was the logic. No, the American president used to say to us, "They shall terrorize us. We shall send you the rolling thunder, like the one was sent to Vietnam. We shall send you the rolling thunder the same way that was sent to Vietnam, and the sandstorm like it was sent to Iraq. And we shall send you and the night as it was sent to Egypt in '56, even though America was against the night operations. And we shall send you the poisonous rose that Reagan sent to the Libyan children." Can you imagine a president of a permanent country, a big country, has a permanent seat of Security Councils, has a right of veto? We thought that America will protect us and send us peace. What is it? These are laser-guided bombs sent to us according to the carried on the F-1F airplanes. This was the logic, and we shall lead the world, and we shall punish anyone, whether you like it or not. We shall punish anyone who will be against us. Now, what our son Obama said is completely different today. he is calling for seriously for the discardment or the proliferation of nuclear weapons, and we applaud that. And America cannot solve the problem alone, and the whole world should come together to solve them. And he said that the position we are at now, we should not continue. Now we are making a speech. It should not be like that. We accept it. We applaud it. And then he said, the United Nations also, we are come here to United Nations to talk against each other. It's true that we come here, we should have equal footing and equal unions and equal associations, and he says that democracy, we should not be imposed from outside. Till the recent days, the American president till recently says that we should impose democracy against Iraq and against so and so and so. He did say that this is an internal affairs of everybody. This was lost words, and what we hear right now is the true sense of the word when he said that democracy cannot be imposed from outside. So we have to be cautious. And before I just say my sensitive remark, or the whole world has so many polos. World, listen, world of so many polos. It should be like that. Should we have so many polos? Can't we nations on equal footing? Can't we equals? Let's have an answer. Anyone have an answer that it is better to have a world of so many polarities? Why can't we have equal standing? Should we have a patriarch? Should we have popes? Should we have gods? Is it necessary? Why should we have a world of so many polarity? We reject, we accept. We do not accept that a world living not equal, big and small. The other point that is sensitive, the quarters of the United Nations. Please, can I have your attention? Please, can I have your attention? All of you came across the Atlantic, crossing the Atlantic Oceans, the Asian continent, or the African continent, to reach this place. Why? Is this the Jerusalem? Is this the Vatican? Is this Mecca? All of you are tired, having jet lag, suffering from jet lag, tired, had sleepless night, and very tired, and physically speaking, you are very low. One just arrived now, flying 20 hours, and then you want him to make a speech and talk about this one. All of you are asleep, all of you are tired. It is clear that all of you are lacking the energy because of having to travel a long journey. Why do we that? Your country now, some of our countries are nighttime and they are asleep, and now you should be asleep because your biological hour or your biological mind is accustomed to be asleep at this time. I wake up 4 o'clock at New York time before dawn, because in Libya it is 11 o'clock in the morning. Because when I wake up at 11 o'clock, I'm supposed to be late. 4 o'clock I'm awake. Why do you think? Why don't you think why? Think about it. If this was put in 45, should we keep it up to now? Why can't we think about a place that is in the middle, comfortable? The other point, America, the hosting country that bears the expenses and the looking after the headquarters and looking after the peace and security of heads of state who come here. Very strict, and they spend a lot of money, and New York and the whole of America being very tight. I want to relieve America from this hardship. We should thank America, and we say to America, thank you for all the trouble that incurred upon itself and we say thank you to America, we want to help America, we want to make America secure, New York secure, and we should not have the responsibility of looking after the security. Perhaps somebody would do any terrorist will make an explosion or a bomb of an aircraft, a president or more kid. And then this place is a targeted by the Al-Qaeda, this very same place, with the same building. And if it was, and why? Because on the 11th of September they did not hit it, that was beyond their power. And the next target, that would be, and I'm not saying this out of the record. We have tens of members of the Qaeda being detained in the Libyan prisons and out of their confessions, very scary. And this makes America lives under tension, and perhaps you never know what will happen. Perhaps America will be targeted again by a rocket, or by perhaps tens of head of state may die. We want America to relieve America from this worry, and we shall take the place to a place where it is not targeted. Now, after 50 years, should be taken to another part of the hemisphere. 50 years in the Western Hemisphere. Now, and for the next 50 years, should be in the Eastern Hemisphere or in the Middle Hemisphere, like this by rotation. Now 64 years, now we have extra 14 years over the 50 years that the quarters should have taken from this. This is not any insult to America. This is a service to America. We should thank America. This was possible in 1945, but we should not accept it now. And of course, this is also put for vote in the General Assembly, only in the General Assembly, because Article 23 of the Agreement 64, it says that like for instance 51. After America has the right to make any tight securities because America is targeted by the terrorists and by Al-Qaeda. America has the right to take all these security measures. I mean, we're not blaming America for that, but we don't tolerate these measures. We don't have to come to New York, and we don't have to be submitted to all these measures. One president told me that your co-pilot should not come to America because there are restrictions. He said, how can I come? How can I cross the Atlantic without a co-pilot? Why? He doesn't have to. He doesn't have to come here. Another president complained that his guard cannot, his honor guard cannot come because there is some misunderstanding in his name in granting him a visa. He came, another president came, he said, my own doctor, he couldn't get a visa and he cannot come to America because he was not granted an entry visa. You see the security measures very strict, and of course if there is any problem that country has with America, then they will put restrictions for the movement of the member delegations, like in Guantanamo. Is this a member state of the United Nations, or is a prisoner in the Guantanamo camp that he cannot allow free movement? So this is what is submitted for voting for the General Assemblies. The transformation or the moving of the headquarters. If 51% say, then we come to the second vote, to the middle of the globe or to the eastern part of the globe. If we say that we have to take the headquarters, then the place is Sept and Vienna. Whether the central hemisphere. Why don't we go to Sept? If you go to 1,000 kilometers, and no one can blame you. And no, if you can come even without a visa. Once you come with a president, it's a secure country. We are not going to restrict you to 100 or 500 meters. And Libya has no hostile actions against anybody. And Vienna, I think, will be in the same positions. And if the vote, it say that we shall have to take the vote to the eastern part, then it will be Delhi or Beijing in China, the capital of China or the capital city of India. And this is logic, I believe, my brothers, and I don't think there will be any objection to that. And then you will say that you thank me for this proposal, for eliminating the suffering and the trouble of flying over 20 hours and 15 hours to come to this place. And no one can blame America, can say that America will reduce its contribution to the United Nations. No, nobody should have this bad thought. America, I'm sure, will be committed to its international obligations, and America will not be angry, and America will thank you for alleviating the hardship of America. And America should thank us for taking all the hardship and all the restrictions for this, plus even though this place is targeted by terrorists. Then we come to the issues that will be taken by the General Assembly. Either we have to try ourselves. Either we do the right thing, or whether we have a new thing. This is not a normal meeting. This is not a normal gathering. This is. Even my son Obama said that. He said this is a historical one. This is not a normal gathering. This is not a normal one. Now, the wars that took place after the establishment of the Second War, why did that happen? Where was the Security Council? Where was the Charter? Where was the United Nations? There should be investigations, and there should be court orders, and why there was massacres. We start with the Korean War. This was taken after the establishment of the United Nations. How a war broke out, and millions of people fell victims, and perhaps there was even the world was about to witness a nuclear war, and those who are responsible and those who caused the war should be tried and should bear the consequences. Then we come to the Suez Canal War in 1956. The file should be open. Why? 3 countries who have permanent seats in the Security Councils enjoy the right, the veto of the Security Councils, attack a member state in this General Assembly. A country that is Egypt, in this case, that was a sovereign state, was attacked, and the army was destroyed, and thousands of Egyptian people were killed, and towns of Egypt were destroyed. How such a thing happened during the era of the United Nations, and how can we guarantee that such a thing will not be repeated unless we redeem the past? And this is a very dangerous thing. The Suez Canal War, the Korean War. We should open the files, and then we come to the Vietnam War. 3 million victims of the Vietnam War. During 11 days, bombs were used more than the bombs used during the whole war. During the Second World War, all the shells or the bombs that were used or bombed during the 4 years of the war, the bombs that were used in the 12 days were more than. This was a fierce war. And this war took place after the establishment of the United Nations, and we decided that there will be no wars. This is the future of the mankind, and we cannot keep quiet. How can we be safe? How can we feel accomplished? How can we feel complacent? I mean, this is the future of the world, and this is the General Assembly of the world, and we have to make sure that such wars will not be repeated in the future. Then Panama was attacked, even though it was an independent state, member state of the General Assembly of the United Nations, and 4,000 people were killed, and the president of this country was taken as a prisoner, and was taken put in prison, and Noriega should be released, and we should open the file, and how we give the right to a country that is a member state of the United Nations to go and wage a war against a country and take the president of such a country and take him as a criminal of war and put him in prison. Who would accept that? This may be repeated, and we should not be quiet, and we should make investigations, and we should, each one of us may face the same destiny. Each member state of us may face the same, especially if this aggression is made by a member state that is has a member seat in the Security Councils and supposed to look and maintain the world of peace security. Then we have the Grenada War. This country was attacked, was invaded, even though it was a member state, and by 5,000 warships and using 7,000 troops. It is the smallest country in the world. And after the establishment of Security Councils, after the establishment of the United Nations, after the United Nations, and the president of this country, Maurice Bishop, was assassinated. How this can be done with impunity? This is a tragedy, and then how can we guarantee that the United Nations is good or not, that the Security Council is good or not? Can we be safe and happy about our future or not? Can we trust the Security Council or not? Can we trust the United Nations or not? Then we have to check and investigate the bombing of the Somali. Somali was a member state of the United Nations. It is an independent country. And during the Farah Hadid, we went to make investigations. Why? Who allowed that? Who gave the green light for such a country to be attacked? Then the Yugoslav war. No country that is peaceful country like Yugoslavia that was built step by step, piece by piece, after it was destroyed by Hitler. We destroy it as if we are doing the same job like Hitler. Hitler, after the death of Tito, and he built this country step by step and brick by brick, and then we come and dismember it for imperialist personal interest. How can we be satisfied? How can we be happy? If a peaceful country like Yugoslavia was faced this tragedy, the General Assembly should make investigations, and General Assembly should decide who should be tried for the ICC. Then we come to the Iraqi war, the mother of all evils. The United Nations also should investigate. The Security Council, the General Assembly presided by the Dr. Aitreki should be investigated by General Assembly. The invasion of Iraq in itself. Well, this was in violation of the United Nations Charter without any justifications made by super countries who have member seats in the Security Councils. Iraq is an independent country, member in the General Assembly. How this country is attacked, and how we have already read in the Charter that the United Nations should have intervened and stopped. We have come to General Assembly, and we have resorted to the General Assembly. We said that we should go to the General Assembly and use the Charter for the checking. We were against this invasion of the Kuwait, but our Arab countries fought with foreign countries in the name of the General Assembly. With foreign countries. In the first place, the UN Charter was respected, and the second time we wanted to use it to stop the war against Iraq. No one used the UN Charter, and it was discarded in the dustbin. Why? Dr. Ali, General Assembly should investigate why there was any reason to invade Iraq. Because it is mysterious, ambiguous, and we may face the same destiny. Why did we invade Iraq? The invasion in itself is a serious violation of the UN Charter. I mean, the invasion itself per se is wrong. Then the total massacre or the genocide, more than 1.5 million Iraqi people were killed. We want the ICC. We want to take this file, and we want those who have committed the general mass murder against the Iraqi people should be tried. Yeah. make it easy for Scalzo to go to be tried, or Taylor to be tried, or Bashir to be tried, or it is easy for Charles Taylor to be tried, or Noriega to be tried. That is an easy job to be done. Okay, what about those who have committed mass murder against Iraqi? Cannot be tried, cannot go to be ICC. If this court is tailored to us, we should not accept it. Either it is meant for all of us, big or small, or we should not accept it and refuse it. If anyone who commits a crime or war a crime and can be tried, we are not animals in the livestock or in the fodder that we slaughtered in the Eid. We have the right. We are ready to fight. We are ready to defend ourselves, and we have the right to live dignified under the sun on the earth. And they have already tested us, and we can put up to test. The other thing, how come that prisoners of war of Iraq can be sentenced to death? Then when Iraq was invaded and the president of the Iraqi was caught, it was made as a prisoner of war. He should not be tried, he should not be hanged, and after the end of war hostilities, he should be released. So we want to know why the prisoner of war can be have been tried or should have been tried. Who sentenced to death the president of Iraq? Is there an answer to that? We know who tried him. The name of the judge, the identity of the judge who put on the sacrifice day the rope around the neck and killed or hanged the president. People we don't know, they have a mask or a mask of their face. If this is a civilized war, these are prisoners of war under civilized countries, under the international law. How a member of a government and the president of a country should be sentenced to death and hanged? Do have the right? Are they legal people? Are they a member of judicial system? Do you know what other people say or what the people say? People say that the American president and the British president are wearing the mask, and they have already put to death president of Iraq. This is why don't they uncover their face? Why don't we know their ranks? Why don't we know, is he an officer or judge, doctor? Who's he? How come that a president of a country, a member state, is sentenced to death and killed in the Eid day? We don't know the identity. Those countries, the implementation, the United Nations has the duty to answer these questions. Who have exercised or implemented the death sentence? Those for they should have the legal status, and they should have the legal states, and they should be responsible. We should know their identity with the presence of the doctor, and all the legal procedures should be even for a layman, let alone as a president of a country, a member state in the United Nations, to be sentenced in such a way and put to death in such a way. This is the Iraqi war. The point number 3 in the Iraqi war is the Abu Ghraib decisions, which is a disgrace to the mankind. I know America made the investigations for this scandal, or the authorities of America will do that, but the United Nations also should not forget it. The United Nations should, the General Assembly of the United Nations should investigate and look into this matter. The Abu Ghraib decisions, the prisoners of war who were persecuted there and who were badly treated, and dogs were used against them, and men were made love to, and no one has done this before in the previous wars. This sodomy, and this is unprecedented sin. No previous aggressions or aggressors and prisoners of war they are soldiers, and they are raped in prisons done by member state of Security Councils. Is this really Security Councils? This is against civilizations, and this is a humane kind, and we should not keep quiet. We should know the fact. And up to now, 250,000 prisoners are still men and women are in Abu Ghraib. They are badly treated and persecuted and raped. We should never forget, and we should open an investigation for that. Then we have the Afghani war. There should also be an investigation for the Afghani war. Why are we against Taliban? Why are we against Afghanistan? Who's Taliban? If Taliban wants to make a religious state, okay, like the Vatican. Vatican does constitute a danger against us? No. It's a religious country, very peaceful. And if Taliban wants to make an Islamic emirate, who said that Taliban is an enemy? Who said Taliban is Bin Laden Afghani? Is Afghani Bin Laden? Is Bin Laden from Taliban? No. He's not Taliban, he's not Afghan. Those terrorists who hit New York, the city that were numbed, are they a Taliban? Are they from Afghan? They are neither Afghan nor Taliban. Then why Iraq? Why Afghanistan? I mean, if I really want to deceive my friends of America and Britain, maybe I would not say that. Maybe I encourage them, and I encourage them to send more troops and encourage them in this bloodbath. But they will never come to a fruitful result in Iraq or in Afghanistan. Look what happened to Afghanistan. Look what happened to them in Iraq, even though it is a desert, and let alone Afghanistan. It is a mountainous area, and if I want to deceive them, I will say to them, okay, carry on war in Iraq, carry on war in Afghanistan, but I want to save the peoples of America and the peoples of Britain, the peoples of other countries who are fighting in Iraq and Afghanistan. I tell them, leave Afghanistan to the Afghans, leave the Iraqi to the Iraqis. If they want to fight each other, they are free. There was civil war in America. No one interfered in the civil war of America. There was a civil war in America, but there was a civil war in Spain, in China, civil war in everywhere. And nowhere on earth there was no civil war in it. Let there be a civil war in Iraq. Let the Iraqis want to have a civil war, fight each other, that's fair enough. Who said that Taliban, if Taliban becomes in government, they would have a nuclear weapon, or they have transatlantic missiles, or those airplanes who hit in New York, this very same place? Do the airplane take off from Afghanistan, from Iraq? No, these planes were in JF Kennedy Airport. How come that we go and hit Afghanistan? They are not Afghan, they are not Taliban, they are not Iraqis. How come that we keep quiet? No, we shall never be devils. Anyone who does not speak the truth is a silent devil. We are committed to peace, world peace and security, and we want to despise the mankind, and we don't want to ridicule mankind, and we want to save the mankind and humanity. Dr. Ali, being President of the Security General Assembly, then you should also open the investigations of the file of assassinations, apart from the war files. Once a new who killed Patrice Lumumba? Why? We just want to record it in our African annals and African history. We want to know how an African liberator, how an African leader, that he was killed, he was assassinated, who killed him. Even for our sons to read history, that our Patrice Lumumba, the hero of the struggle of Angola, the liberation struggle, that he was assassinated, that he was killed. We want to know the fact about that. Even after 50 years maybe, this is one file, one dossier should be reopened again. And who killed the Secretary General Hammerschmidt? Who bombed the airplane of this Secretary General in 62 or 61? How come that the airplane of the security, that the General Assembly of that the Secretary General of the United Nations, his airplane was bombed, and then the assassination or the killing of Kennedy in 63 or 62, the President of the United States of America. Why? We want to know who killed him. Somebody who by the name of Lee Harvey, and then another Jack Ruby killed Lee Harvey. Why did he kill him? Jack Ruby, an Israeli, killed Lee Harvey, who killed Kennedy. Why did this Israeli kill the killer of Kennedy? Then the killer of Jack Ruby, the killer of Kennedy, died ambiguously and mysteriously. We don't know before the trial. We have to open the files. The whole world should be. We know when we read it that Kennedy wanted to investigate the files of the nuclear reactor of the Israeli demand, and then it is to do with the Security Council. It is to do with the peace and security of the world, and then we should open this file. Why? And then the killing of Martin Luther King. This black reverend, who a human rights activist, his killing was a plot, and we should know why he was killed and who killed him. And then Khalid al-Wazir, Abu Jihad, the Palestinian, and he was attacked. He was in Tunisia, living peacefully there, and the independence of this country was not respected. We cannot keep quiet. So even though submarines and ships came along the shores of Tunisia, and he was killed there, and then no one is blamed and no one is judged for that. And then Abu Iyad also was killed, and we should know how he was killed. He was killed in ambiguous circumstances. And then Firdan, or the youth fountain. In this operation, Kamal Nasser is a poet, Kamal Udwan, and Abu Yusuf al-Najjar. 3 Palestinians were killed in a country that is sovereign, member states in the Security Councils, member General Assembly. In Lebanon, they were living or sleeping peacefully. They were attacked and assassinated. We should know who killed them, and we should judge, so that these violations of mankind should not be repeated. Can you call somebody to take over, please? Can you call the other translator? We have already talked about the invasion of Grenada and how many ships were used. Grenada was 7,000 and 15 warships and hundreds of bombers, or tens of bombs. And President Bishop was killed and assassinated, and even though it was a member. These are crimes, and we cannot keep quiet, we cannot keep silent. Otherwise, we shall be like sacrifices. We are not animals, and year after year we are attacked. We defend ourselves, we defend our sons, we defend our children, and we are not afraid. We have the right to live, and the global or the earth is not meant for the superpowers. It is meant for all of us, and we can never live humiliated on this earth. No. So we have the wars, and the last file is the massacres, the Sabra and Shatila massacres. 3,000 people were killed and massacred. This area was under the Israeli protection, the occupying Israeli army, and a serious big massacre were there. Children, men, women, Palestinians were massacred, was killed. 3,000 of them were massacred and killed. How can we keep quiet? Lebanon is an independent state. A member in the General Assembly was occupied and controlled, and Sabra Shatila was under the control, and then the massacre took place. And then the 2008 massacre of Gaza. 2,100 children were victims, 3,200 between children and women were killed and massacred in Gaza in the massacre in the year of 2008. "50 associations related to the United Nations were destroyed, and another 50 non-governmental organizations were also destroyed. 50 clinics were destroyed. 40 doctors and nurses were killed while they were exercising their humane activity and humane job. This was done in 2010. And the committers are still alive, and they should be tried to the ICC. Should we take only the underdog or the weak of the third countries, of the small peoples, but the big people and the protected people are not supposed to be tried? If they are under the control of the international law, then they should face trial and they should face the consequences of the crime that they committed. Otherwise, we should never accept also the rules of the ICC. So long the ICC, the rules or the orders are not respected and are not implemented, and the General Assembly is nothing, and the IAA is meant for certain countries, certain organizations, then what is the United Nations? This means that the United Nations is nothing, is insignificant. Where is it? We don't have United Nations. Then the piracy may be a phenomenon along the high overseas. We are talking about the piracy of Somalia. Somalis are not pirates. We are the pirates. We went there, we took their economic zones, we took their fish, we took their wealth. Libya, India, and Japan, America, any country in the world, you just name it. All of us, we're all pirates. We all went there to the territorial water of Somalis, the economic zones, and then we took, and the Somalis are protecting their own protecting their own fish, the substance of their food. They have become pirates because they are defending the food of their children, the food of their babies. Now we want to address this matter wrongly. Shall we send warships to the Somalis? We shall send warships to the pirates who have attacked and took and usurped the economic zones and the wealth of the Somalis, the food of the children. Anyhow, I have seen the pirates, and I told them, I shall make a convention agreement between you and the world, that the whole world will respect the economic zone that is 200 miles according to the international sea law, and all the wealth, marine wealth, should be protected because it belongs to the Somali people. And then all countries will stop disposing of poisonous waste along the shores of Somalis. And in return, the Somalis will not attack the ships anymore. We shall propose and draft this international treaty, and we give it to the General Assembly. This is the solution. The solution does not lie in sending more military ships to fight the Somalis. No, this is not the solutions. Our addressing to the phenomenon of piracy is wrong. Our addressing to the phenomenon of the terror is wrong. The swine flus. Perhaps tomorrow we shall have a fish flu, because we do make sometimes virus in the laboratory and we lose control over them. This means that it is a commercial, it is business. They make the virus so that the capitalist companies will have the vaccinations, create the vaccinations, and they want to sell it. And this is really shame, and this is really bad ethic. Vaccination should not be sold. Read the Green Book. Medicine should not be sold. Medicine should not be sold. Should not be a commercial business. You should make a declaration that medicine should be free of charge. that vaccination should be given free to children, so that capitalist countries or capitalist companies make the viruses and make the vaccinations, and they want to make a profit. And why don't we make it free of charge? Why don't we give it free? We should give it free. We should not sell it. The whole world should make an effort to create and manufacture vaccinations and protect our own people and give it free to children and women, and should not make a profit. And all these items are put in the agenda of the General Assembly, and the General Assembly has only this duty to exercise. Then the Ottawa Agreement forbids the creating of mines this is wrong. Mine is an offensive weapon. It is a defensive weapon. If you put it there, you come to it. I put it along the border of my country. If you want to invade me, then you may be killed. That's okay, because you are invading me. I'm not taking this defensive weapon to your country. You are coming to me, and there is a website for Gadaffi talks, and you can read it. This treaty should be modified or should be annulled. This treaty should be modified or should be annulled. I mean, I want to create or have a mine against personal, because for defense against my home, against the invasion of my we should discard the. As regards the Palestinians, the solution is a democratic country for the Palestinians, for the Jews, for the Israelis.
This solution, the two-state solution, is not practical. From now, these two states are totally overlapped. The inevitability of the failure of partition, these two states are not neighborly, they are interlapped, they're overlapped from the population, from the geographic point of view, and therefore you cannot even create a buffer zone between the two states, because the West Bank has 500,000 Israeli settlers, and what is called Israel, there are 1 million Arab Palestinians there. So the solution is an Arab democratic, is a democratic state without religious fanaticism. The Sharon and the Arafat are over. This generation is over. We need a new generation in which everybody lives in peace. Look at the Palestinian youth. Look at the Israeli youth. They both want peace. They want to live under one state. This conflict poisons the world. This white book actually has the solution, and I give it to you. It's Isratin. Isratin is the solution. Arabs have no hostility nor animosity towards Israel. We're from the same race. We want to live in peace. The refugees should go back. You're the ones who brought upon them the Holocaust. You're the one who burned them, not us. We gave them refuge. We gave them safe havens during the Romans, during the Arab reign in Andalusia. You are the ones who poisoned them. You're the ones who annihilated them. We provided them with protection. You expelled them. Let's see the truth. We're not hostile. We're not enemies of the Jews. And the Jews will one day need the Arabs. At that point, Arabs will be the ones to give them protection, to save them as they've done. Look at what everybody else did to the Jews. Hitler is an example. You are the ones who hate the Jews, not us. In brief, Kashmir should be an independent state, not Indian, not Pakistani. We should end this conflict. It should be a buffer state between India and Pakistan. Therefore, I really hope that the assistance provided by international organizations would become development projects for agriculture, for irrigation. You are the ones who made it a crisis, and you've put it on the altar. You wanted to sacrifice Darfur. You've turned the Hariri problem into the United Nations. Why? You sell the body of Hariri. You just want to settle scores with Syria. Lebanon is an independent state. It has law. It has courts. It has judiciary. It has police. What we're after are not the perpetrators at that point. What they really wanted was to settle scores with Syria. They're not after justice for al-Hariri. Khalil Wazir, Lumumba, Kennedy could have been turned into the United Nations as well if the Hariri case was turned into the United Nations. The General Assembly is now under the presidency of Libya. This is our right, and Libya hopes that you would assist the world to move from one stage to the other, from a world that is scattered, that is fraught with crises and tension, to a world in which humanity prevails, in which tolerance prevails. And I will personally follow up on this issue with the General Assembly, with Treki, with the Secretary General. It's not part of our courtesies or our habits to compromise when it has to do with the destiny of humanity, the struggle of the third world, the struggle of small nations should live in peace to the end. God, peace be upon you. I thank my brother, the leader of the revolution, and chairperson of the African Union, for his statement.